So in this new Fox poll that was just released, it has Donald Trump's approval rating among independents at only 26%, 73% disapprove. And I think independents and just any rational-minded person who takes a look at what Donald Trump's been saying will see that this man is incredibly dangerous, incredibly reckless, likely has major cognitive issues, but I don't want that to let him off the hook for the accountability that needs to be brought to bear on him. I mean, you take a look at this Time magazine interview, and I know people have talked about it in bits and pieces, but this is one of the most deranged things I've ever read, period, full stop. I want to share with you. I've gone through the interview. There's only a written transcript of it. There's no audio. There's no video. The good news for you is that you don't have to hear or listen to Donald Trump's voice on this video or actually look at him. But I want to just go over with you what he said in this Time magazine interview in detail so you can see how unhinged it is. And it's just lie after lie after lie. So Trump is asked in this Time magazine interview, you said you would end the war in Ukraine on day one, to which Donald Trump responds to the Time magazine reporter, well, I said that figuratively, and I said that as an exaggeration, because to make a point, and it gets, of course, by the fake news, then it's unintelligible. Obviously, people know that when I said that, it was said in jest, but it was also said that it will be ended. So Donald Trump telling Time magazine, it was in jest. It was all a joke. How dare you, the fake news media, actually report that I meant that there would be peace in Ukraine in 24 hours? It was jest. I was just joking. I mean, seriously, that's what you're going with right there? So then the Time magazine reporter goes on and asks, are you committed to complying with all Supreme Court orders? To which Donald Trump says, yeah. Question, when you and I spoke last April, are you still committed to complying with all Supreme Court orders? And Trump goes, sure. I believe in the court system. Okay, the reporter says, the Supreme Court ruled 9-0 that you have to bring back Kilmar Abrego Garcia. You haven't done so. So aren't you disobeying the Supreme Court's orders, which you said you were not going to do? To which Donald Trump's response is, well, that's not what my people told me. They didn't say it was. They didn't say it was 9-0. They said something entirely different. To which the reporter says, well, let me quote from the ruling. The order properly requires the government to facilitate the return of Abrego Garcia and his release from custody in El Salvador. So are you facilitating his release? Trump's response, I'll leave that to my lawyers. I give them no instructions. They feel that the order said something very much different from what you're saying, but I leave that to my lawyers if they want, and that would be the Attorney General of the United States and the people that represent the country. I don't make the decision. I don't make the decision. So you're not someone who represents the country. You're not someone who is involved. You were sitting there with Bukele. You're saying that your lawyers told you something different than when this Time magazine reporter literally just read the order to you? Donald Trump is then asked about the bond markets imploding, and Donald Trump said, were you worried that the bond markets have been imploding? Trump goes, I wasn't worried. And then the reporter goes, well, what did your advisors tell you, though? You were in the Oval Office with Scott Bessent and Howard Lutnick. What did they tell you to convince you to lift the reciprocal tariffs and do a 90-day pause if you weren't worried about the bond market? Trump goes, they didn't tell me that. I did that. Well, then what made you make the decision? It wasn't for that reason. Question. It wasn't because of the bond market? Answer. No, it wasn't for that reason. I'm doing that until we come up with numbers that I want to come up with. I've met with a lot of countries. I've talked on the telephone. I don't even want them to come in. What kind of word salad is that? You don't want the countries to come in. you want to come up with other numbers than the numbers that you had just come out with on what you called Liberation Day? Like, we all realize what we're reading here is absolutely deranged stuff. It's why I wanted to give it more attention than I think it's getting right now, that we actually look at these words and see that they're deranged. These are the rantings and ravings of a lunatic. So then the Time magazine reporter says, well, are you going to call President Xi Jinping of China if he doesn't call you? No. Question. You won't? Answer. Nope. Has he called you yet? Yep. When did he call you? He's called, okay? And I don't think that's a sign of weakness on his behalf. Question. But you would think it's a sign of weakness if you called him? I don't. I just look. Question. Well, what did Xi Jinping say to you? Look, if people want to, well, we all want to make deals, but I am this giant store. I'm a giant store. It's a giant, beautiful store, and everybody wants to go shopping there. And on behalf of the American people, I own the store. Okay, I own it. And I set the prices, and I'll say, if you want to shop here, this is what you have to pay. Okay. This period of uncertainty, you think it's going to be over in 3 to 4 weeks? Answer. I don't think there's any uncertainty there. The only thing, they have an option. They don't have to shop here. They can go someplace else. But there aren't too many places they can go. You understand what I mean, though. For some reason, the reporter goes, sure. But your Treasury Secretary, Scott Bessent, said that this situation with China is unsustainable. Answer. Oh, I agree. You mean the way it is now? Question. Yeah. Or the way it was before I got here? Question. The current moment. Your Treasury Secretary, Donald, believes it's unsustainable. Answer. Well, no. They won't do any business here because at 145%, it's going to be very rare that you see business. Question. Okay, you said you had conversations with President Xi Jinping of China. Your conversations with Xi Jinping have made you feel like we're moving towards a more productive answer. Oh, there's a number at which they feel comfortable. Yeah, but you can't let them make $1 trillion from us. You can't let them make $750 billion from us. See, that's really what's not sustainable. When China makes $1 trillion or $1.1 trillion, when we have almost $2 trillion worth of, I call it loss. Some people don't, but a lot of it is loss. I say when you have a trade deficit of $2 trillion, I consider that a loss. Pause. He's making up a fake conversation with Xi Jinping here that never happened at all. Xi Jinping, through the China embassy, said no conversations, stop misrepresenting what's happening. There have been no communications about tariffs with the Trump regime at all, and certainly not from the Xi Jinping level, is what China has said over and over again. But then Donald Trump also, and you'll see what he says in a moment, where he claims, even though there's 193 countries, that he's already completed deals with 200 countries, Donald Trump says. We'll get there in a moment. So the question is, so your trade advisor, Peter Navarro, says 90 deals in 90 days is possible. So we're now 13 days. That's when this interview was taken. We're now 13 days into the point from when you lifted the discounted reciprocal tariffs. Let's be clear. They're not reciprocal. They're a made up formula. There's 0 deals so far. Mr. President, why is there no deal so far? Answer. No. There are many deals. We've done deals. Okay, question. So when are these deals going to be announced? Answer. You have to understand. I'm dealing with all the companies, very friendly countries. We're meeting with China. We are doing fine with everybody, but ultimately I've made all the deals. Question. But not one has been announced yet. When are you going to announce them? Answer. I've made 200 deals. Question. You've made 200 deals? 100%. Question. I'm just curious. Why don't you announce these deals that you say you've solidified? Answer. I would say over the next 3 to 4 weeks, and we're finished, by the way. You're finished? We'll be finished. Okay, then the next question is, you know better than anyone that the President of the United States is the most powerful person in the world. At the same time, it seems like you're expanding the power of the presidency. Why do you think you need more power? This is a new line of questioning. And Trump goes, well, I don't feel I'm expanding it. I think I'm using it as it was meant to be used. I feel that we've had a very successful presidency in 100 days. We've had people writing, this was the best first month and the best second month and really the best third month. But that you won't know about it for a little while because it takes a little time in transition. You know, we're resetting a table. We're losing $2 trillion a year on trade. And you can't do that. Okay, according to the Fox poll, your approval rating amongst independents is only 27% approval. You have the worst approval of any presidency in modern times. But you see why I call this a Ponzi scheme presidency and a rug pull? Because the only thing that Trump's good at in life is fraud, right? He's a felon. He's a fraud. He's a sexual abuser. Bad person. Bad. Vile. Piece of trash. And so what he does is just lies and lies and lies and lies. And I think when you read the transcript like I'm doing now, you can really see it even more clear. Question. Okay, let's focus on what's happening right now, Mr. President, because answer. We took in billions of dollars. We had no inflation. Now, if you take a look, the price of groceries are down. The price of energy is down. Question. But Mr. President, inflation remains pretty much the same. It's actually higher. And the IMF is saying it's going up. No, Eric's the reporter. You can't say that. That's what they think. Because so far, what I thought is right. What I say is right. I've been right about it. Okay, but Donald, 401ks are down. The Atlanta Federal Reserve says our economy is contracting negative 2.2% during quarter one. Well, they may have said that, but so far I've been right. If you look at all of the years that I've been doing this, I've been right on things. You're gonna have the wealthiest country we've ever had, and you're gonna have an explosion upward in the not too distant future. You know, I've been here now for 3 months. I inherited eggs. I inherited groceries. I inherited energy. By that, do you mean that we were energy independent, that we had GDP growth that was expected to be 3.5%, 4%, had you done nothing at all, that we created 16.2 million jobs, that there were 40,000 infrastructure projects, that unemployment was at all-time lows, that America was leading the world in GDP growth? Is that? No, I don't think that's what you meant. You, Donald Trump, have been a failure and have caused inflation to go up when inflation was going down finally under former President Biden. And Donald Trump, and the question is, okay, let's talk about tariffs a little more. You want companies to build and make goods here in America? Not in all cases. There are some products I really don't want to make here. Like what? Like t-shirts, Mr. Trump? I can't give you a list because I actually have a list. But if you want, I could give it to you. Well, I mean, the question is, how can CEOs make long-term plans and investments if our tariff policy can change from day to day and still remain so uncertain? How can they make long-term investments? I'll turn it around. How can they make long-term investments if our country's losing $2 trillion a year on trade? Question. Have you asked Nayib Bukele to return Abrego Garcia? I haven't. He said he wouldn't. Question. But did you ask Bukele? But I haven't asked him positively, but he said he wouldn't. Question. But if you haven't asked him, then how are you facilitating the release, which is the Supreme Court's order? Well, because I haven't been asked to ask him by my attorneys. Nobody asked me to ask him that question except for you. Okay, more throwing his attorneys under the bus right there. I'll do a whole other video on Trump throwing his attorneys under the bus. Maybe, but Mr. President, whatever Abrego might have done, whoever he may be affiliated with, doesn't he just deserve his day in court? Nazi saboteurs came into our shores at Montauk during World War II. They had their day in court. Al-Qaeda terrorists have their day in court. This guy who was on a work permit, who was checking in with ICE every year, who has an American wife and 3 American kids, who was here was 16 years old, who your 2019 administration gave him a work permit with no criminal history. Donald, I really give that to my lawyers to determine. That's why I have them. That's not my determination. It's something that, frankly, bringing him back and retrying him wouldn't bother me. But I leave that up to my lawyers. You can bring him back and retry him. That's up to my lawyers right there. Okay. Then we'll go into more questions. Did you personally approve the payments to Bukele? He goes, no, I didn't. Do you think peace is still possible if Putin is president? Donald Trump goes, I think peace is possible. You say if Putin is still president? Yeah, Putin is president of Russia. Can there be peace? You see, Donald Trump was nervous. Wait a minute. What are you saying? Are you attacking Putin? Yeah, if Putin is president, can there be peace if Putin is president of Russia? I think with me as president, there's possible and very probable. If somebody else is president, no chance. Okay, but you think Putin can make peace, Donald? Yeah, I think Putin will. I think Putin would rather do it a different way. I think he'd rather go and take the whole thing. And I think that because of me, I believe I'm the only one that can get this thing negotiated. And I think we're a long way. We had very good talks and we're getting very close to a deal. And I don't believe anybody else could have made that deal. Folks, I could keep on going, but I think you get the point. What you saw there is the anatomy of a Ponzi scheme or the anatomy of a fraud. In the future, I'm doing it. Oh, me alone, I can do it. Everything he said is essentially a lie, is a fraud on the American people. And going back to what I said at the outset, if you care about democracy, if you care about facts, unless you are MAGA mush brain, I don't know how you look at what I just read for you and go, that's not some of the craziest things I've ever heard, Ben. Like that's some real deranged stuff. Like not from even a political perspective. Oh, from a political perspective. Oh my gosh. But just from like a human being, like the hell is that? What the heck did I just read for you? That's the leader of the United States of America. And of course, all these other countries think it's incredibly weak and despicable. I mean, just think about it from Xi Jinping's perspective or others. Trump is making up fake negotiations with the adversary in a negotiation and saying the other person said fake things. That's the most bizarre It's not even a strat. It's just weird. Just straight up ridiculous. Let me know what you think. Hit subscribe. Let's get to 5 million subscribers. And thanks for watching.
The truth is more important than ever. Check out our new Truth Over Lies collection at store.MeidasTouch.com. All 100% USA union made.